last year, Student Activities Council decided to hold an event called Pet a Puppy as a de-stressor during finals week. Me, being the kind of person who loves puppies, decided to stop by the event. Turns out Pet a Puppy turned into Pet a Pug, and given my slight obsession, I almost started to cry and my boyfriend forced me to leave. Now, pugs have a very extensive history and have transformed greatly as a breed over the last 4 centuries, both anatomically as well as with popularity. And given that I saw a pug that one time and they constituted over half my likes on Twitter, you'd think I know a little bit about the breed. Now, there are 3 main things to understanding pugs. First, their extensive history. Second, their anatomy and personality. And lastly, their multitude of health issues. Now, first, we have to see that pugs have a very long history, beginning with Oriental origins, then in Europe, and finally in America. Pugs were very similar to other dogs due to their Chinese origins, such as Pekingese, and they were first bred in China. Now, during their beginning, they often served as pets for monks in Buddhist monasteries in Tibet. However, it wasn't until much later that pugs became popular in Europe, and there's one specific historical figure who can be attributed to the rising fame of pugs. Pugs were considered the official dog of the House of Orange, and in 1572, Sir William's pug was said to have saved his life by warning him that the Spaniards were coming. Later, when William became King of England, pugs were included in his royal entourage, and because of this and some of the stories that he told about the animals, there are several prominent pieces of art that featured pugs from this time period. According to Phil Majetti, of his book called Pugs, Everything You Need to Know About Purchase, Care, Nutrition, Behavior, and Teaching from 2000, he states that the word pug was originally introduced into the English language as a word of endearment. It wasn't until much later that the word would come to represent the animal we know and love today. Now, pugs were first introduced into America shortly after the Civil War, and in 1885, they were first registered with the American Kennel Club. And while their ranking was low at the beginning, they slowly climbed higher on the list over the year. Now, in each country, Asia, Europe, and North America, we see that pugs' history has become richer, and the animal has been defined in each culture. While their history is important, it's also important to look at their anatomy because it has transformed, as well as their personality that has remained the same. Now, we see that their anatomy has changed greatly over the years that pugs have existed. This is what a more original pug looks like. Their legs are longer and stronger, their head is less squished, their faces aren't quite as flat, and lastly, their torsos are stronger and more even. Now, when we look to a more modern pug, we see that their legs are shorter and more uneven. We see that their faces and heads have become much smaller, and in turn, their faces have become flatter. Now, when we look to these issues, we see that there's many things that happen for pugs genetically that becomes a problem. However, while their anatomy has changed, we see that their personality has remained the same. According to the American Kennel Club, we see that pugs are often described as multum parvo, which means a lot of dog in a small space. This describes their personalities very well because they're very outgoing, which can be seen by the fact that they enjoy being dressed up. Secondly, we see that these dogs can be very calm and good with children and are therefore rarely aggressive. Now, while they have these big personalities, their changing anatomies can cause a multitude of health issues for pugs, including respiratory issues as well as issues with basic structure. Now, when we look to their respiratory issues, we see that they have many issues with the size, as we've shown previously with the modern pug. According to Morgan C. Flannery of the National Association of Biology Teachers, in an article titled Dogs and Humans from 2007, we see that she found out that pugs were one of the #1 breeds with respiratory issues. Now, this is due to the fact that their small faces make it difficult for them to pant, their overcrowded mouths are overcrowded with teeth, and we also see that their windpipes are more narrow than the average animal. Now, because of this, pugs' respiratory systems function similarly to a straw, which means that when they try to take in too much air, their airways collapse. Now, respiratory issues are very important, but we also see that they have basic structure issues. When you look to the organization OFA, which stands for the Organization for Foundation for Animals, we see that pugs are rated as the second highest breed in hip dysplasia. Hip dysplasia is when an animal's hip socket is shaped abnormally, which causes severe pain and arthritis in the animals. Now, we see that they also suffer from another issue called skin fold dermatitis. What skin fold dermatitis is when pugs have extra skin around their ears, their eyes, and their noses, and that area can become inflamed or infected. Now, according to the Daily Mail from July 2014, writer Tim Hodgkinson quotes veterinary medicine doctor Charlotte Dawson when she talks about her own pug Frank and how she has to clean the folds between his skin daily to prevent him from getting infection. Overall, pugs have a very huge historical significance and importance in today's society. We see this through their extensive history in many different places. We also see it in their anatomy and personality, and lastly through their multitude of health issues, including the respiratory issues as well as basic structure. After this speech, I have to say that I'm excited for the next